Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. Just give me a moment here. I will get things started once I know that everything is working properly. It says that the stream is running perfectly. We'll just have to wait to see if I show up on your screens. It looks like everything's working the way it's supposed to. Well, hello. Welcome to this English lesson where we're going to talk a little bit about large tools and other equipment. We'll get started in just a moment. I do want to talk about a few things though before we get started. Number one, if this is your first time here, don't forget to click the subscribe button. I do these live lessons every Friday morning at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and they usually have a topic. Today's topic is large tools and other equipment. Did I forget to do like my formal intro? I think I did, right? Should I stop and do that for a sec? I think because I'm not using the timer, I keep forgetting that. So let me do my formal intro and then I'll be a little more interactive. Here we go. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about large tools and other equipment. I'm quite excited about this lesson because in this lesson, I get to talk about the things that I think are cool. In my shop, I have some of these tools, things like pressure washers and generators and drill presses. And if you like tools, I think you'll like this lesson. I will admit this is kind of a unique lesson and it might not be exciting for all of you. But if you want to talk about log splitters, you've come to the right place. If you want to learn about jack stands and bandsaws and dust collectors, I will talk about all of those things today. So once again, welcome to this English lesson about large tools and other equipment. I think you will enjoy it. So that's the formal introduction. If you're wondering, oh, I'm driving into my microphone here. If you're wondering why, where this lesson idea came from, every week we get what are called flyers like this. This is from Princess Auto. It's kind of a tool and equipment place. And then this is from a place called Canadian Tire. And you can see that they sell a lot of tools and large equipment. So when I was sitting and having breakfast, I think actually last Friday after the live stream, I think, I looked at those flyers and I thought, oh, I should do a lesson on large tools and other equipment. These live lessons, when I do a topic like this, aren't always popular the day I do it, but sometimes they become very popular for people who are studying and learning to do something with large tools or equipment. I did one on small tools a while ago as well. Anyways, hello to Hafiaz, Key Park, Freddie Wolf. Know that says, I hope you didn't cut your hair because I mentioned the beard thing on Wednesday, Bob. Just kidding. No. This is pretty standard as the school year approaches. I usually get my hair cut a week or two before it starts. Hafiaz says, I love tools. By the way, if you're new here, this is live if you're watching it at 8:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And these lessons are live every Wednesday. So hopefully you enjoy it. If you see people with their name in green in the chat, those are people who are members of the channel. And I do appreciate them being members. Should we get started though? I have quite a few. I think I have 34 things to teach you today. Hafia says back then we had those flyers, but for toys and video games, also Scholastic books and stationaries. Wonder if anyone remembers those. I remember the Scholastic book flyers. Those were really cool. Okay, here we go. Let's get this started. If you have questions along the way, please use the link to ask them. And I will pause every 10 minutes to answer viewer questions if you have questions about what I am teaching. Here we go. Shop vac. So we also sometimes call this a wet dry vac. This is a little different than the vacuum cleaner you use in your house. This is a powerful vacuum used for cleaning dirt, dust, and liquids in workshops. We have a shop vac and I love it. The cool thing about a shop vac, it's a vacuum cleaner and you can use it to you can suck up water. You can suck up like leaves from Jen's plants when she does her bouquet making that fall on the floor. It's just we would say it's like an industrial grade vacuum cleaner. I love our shop vac. Now, shop vac is the name of this kind of wet dry vac, but in English, in my part of the world, it's become the name we use for all of these types of vacuum cleaners. We would simply call it a shop vac, even if it was made by a different company. So a shop vac, a powerful vacuum used for cleaning dust, dirt, and liquids in workshops and in your basement or in your house. You can use it in your garage as well. If you have a little bit of a flood in your house, you can use this to suck up the water. Well, some of it. It only holds like 4 liters or something like that. Scaffolding. So a temporary structure for workers to stand on when building or repairing. So if you need to work on something and it's high up, you could use a ladder. You could use a step ladder. But if you have to work up there for a long period of time, you might want to build a scaffold, or what we call scaffolding. We kind of use those two words interchangeably. So I could say he's standing at the top of the scaffold, or he's standing at the top of the scaffolding. They've kind of blended the use of the two words. I say scaffolding. That is my normal. If I saw something like this, I would say it is scaffolding. So again, if you need to work on something on the ceiling, if you're like these two people, you might set up some scaffolding, especially if you're going to be up there for a while. A ladder is cool, but scaffolding can be much nicer if you need to spend a lot of time in the air. A vise, a tool that holds objects tightly in place while you work on them. I have a vise on my workbench in my workshop, and it is very handy. You can put something in the vise and then you can tighten it, and then I guess you would call them the jaws of the vise close, and then you tighten the bar on the end and it holds whatever you have in the vise. Like if I needed to work on these glasses, I could put them in the vise and then the vise would hold them while I work on them. I wouldn't actually do that with glasses, of course. That would be a bit silly. But yes, I love my vise. It is actually, it's quite old. Sometimes in the case of tools, older tools are better. And that's the case as well with my anvil. I have an anvil as well, a heavy metal block used for hammering and shaping metal. The anvil I have, it's when I bought the farm from my mom, it was here. As a kid, I remember my dad, putting in rivets and stuff on the anvil. Whenever you had to, hit metal with a hammer to bend it or shape it, we would use the anvil. So a heavy metal block, a very heavy metal block used for hammering and shaping metal. My anvil is on a big old tree stump. I should actually take a picture of it later today. I should have used a picture of my anvil, but usually an anvil is used with a hammer. So you use it with a hammer and you use it to form metal. Anytime you need to bang something against something heavy, an anvil is a good choice. Tool chest. So I do not have one of these. Now you might be wondering, what is the difference between a tool chest and a toolbox? So a tool chest is a large box or cabinet for storing tools. In my part of the world, if you buy a tool chest, I dropped my other flyer. It almost always has wheels on it. I think I showed you one at the beginning of the lesson. So these would be what I would call tool chests. I think it says that on there even, doesn't it? This is like the worst lesson ever. It won't focus that close. Anyways, when it's large and has drawers and has wheels on it like these two, I would refer to that as a tool chest. A toolbox is usually a small box for carrying tools with a handle on the top that you can take to different locations. But I do not have a tool chest. I would love someday to have a tool chest. That would be really, really nice. A welder, a machine used to join pieces of metal together with heat. I guess with heat, it's electricity that creates heat that actually fuses the metal together. That might be a new verb for you, to fuse. I think that's the correct verb for a welder. When you weld, you have to wear welding goggles or a welding helmet because you need eye protection. because it's so bright it can damage your eyes. So basically, if you have two pieces of metal, you will connect the little clamp to the one piece of metal, you will attach the other piece where you want it, and then you will use the welder to put down a bead of weld onto the pieces, and then they will be permanently together. I do have an old welder, but I don't use it very often. I'm not very adept at welding. Cutting torch. I do not have one of these. A tool that uses a flame fueled by gases like oxygen and acetylene to cut through metal. So we sometimes call it an oxyacetylene torch, or we call it just a torch or a cutting torch. It's different than like the small bottle of propane with the flame at the top. This is connected to two large canisters, and it's usually two different gases that when they mix create a very intense hot flame that's capable of cutting through like relatively thick metal. I've used a torch before. I do not have one. They scare me a little bit, but a cutting torch is a tool that uses a flame to cut through metal. And you can see here, the flame is kind of blue right where it comes out of the tip. And that, I think, is where the flame is the hottest. And that is how you cut through metal. A pressure washer. So a pressure washer is a machine that sprays water at high pressure for cleaning surfaces. I had a pressure washer and it broke. A pressure washer is very nice for cleaning off your vehicle, cleaning off other equipment, cleaning off your driveway. It sprays water, harder than just a normal hose, or a hose with a little nozzle on the end. The pressure washer will increase the amount of water that comes out, and it will spray a very, very strong, what was I going to say here? Like flow of water against something. So a pressure washer, a very nice device to have. They can be electric or they can run on a gas engine, and they use the power of the electric motor or gas engine to pressurize the water. Hey, let's look at some questions. I just saw Hafiaz ask, can I use the cutting torch to torch crème brûlée? You could, but it would go really fast. Like it would be like, whew, that would be it. I heard pressure washing is one of the most satisfying activities for middle-aged men and above. Probably, yes. Pressure washers are very cool. Hey, Brent's here. Good to see you, Brent. Good morning. And Brent says, I remember an anvil dropping on Wile E. Coyote's head. Oh, yes, the anvil was definitely from the Roadrunner cartoons. Okay, let me do some questions and get back to the lesson from Know That. Hello, Bob. Which of these tools / equipment you already have is your favorite? And if you could choose one you don't have, which would it be? Thanks, Bob. So we haven't done them all, but I would love to have, let me see here. Yeah, I would love to have a tool chest. I mentioned that already, but coming up, there's something called, where is it on my list? Oh, a CNC machine, a computer numerical, I forget the name of it, but you connect it to your computer and it will cut things out. I would love to have a CNC machine someday. Of the ones I have, I love my generator, and I really love, I have a leaf blower as well. Those are both really handy. From Ario, hi, Mr. Bobby. How are you? Hopefully everything is hunky-dory in your neck of the woods. My question is, can you fix things? If so, what tools do you use to fix it? I can fix some things. Mostly I can fix the things that my dad or my uncle taught me to fix when I was younger. So I can do, I can hook up and connect hoses. I can, but if it's anything complex, like if an electric motor doesn't work, I usually take it to an expert. So I do have a limited list. Lucas says, do you have a favorite tractor? I have a Farmall 656, and it is now my favorite tractor after selling my big green tractor. From Judith, hi Bob. Sometimes it is practical to buy a large tool instead of smaller ones. Do you know in what cases have you done it? Thanks. So I have a drill press, which I'll talk about in a bit. So a drill is something you use to make a hole in something. A drill press is a machine where you can make very accurate holes. And I'll show you a picture in a moment. And that is a very, very practical machine to have. From Judith as well. Hi, Bob. What kind of work is easier to be done with a large tool? I mean, a really large one. Thanks. So I don't have this tool on the list, but I would say if you have a hammer and chisel and you have to chip away at something, it's better to use a jackhammer. Yeah, so I think I had the word jackhammer on another list in another lesson, but certainly if you're going to, ding, 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 if you have a chisel and a hammer and you're chipping stone, it's better to have like a jackhammer. That would make the work much easier. From Unsel. Hi, Mr. Bob. If you came from the past and saw today's world, which large tool or machine do you think would impress you the most? So some of you might laugh at this. If you ever played GeoGuessr with me, I think excavators are amazing machines. An excavator is a machine with a huge arm and a bucket that can dig a hole in the ground. When we played GeoGuessr live, which I might do again, by the way, once a month, we'll see. Often I would see an excavator and I would get excited. I just love machines that can move dirt, like dump trucks, excavators, backhoes. Those are very, very cool. Let's see here. How many gears does a tractor have? Like I hear up to 16. Is that true? My tractor I sold had 16 gears. The tractor I have now, my older tractor, has 10 forward gears and 2 reverse gears. Silavari says, which equipment do you use most? I would say my tractors, I guess, helping Jen on the farm. Yes. Okay. Let me see. I think there's one more question and then we'll get back to the lesson. Yes, from Unsel. Hi again. Do you think that by saving time with machines, we've ironically lost the slower, richer depth of life that once existed? Thanks a lot. Bye. No, I think machines are amazing. Here's why I say that. When I was a kid growing up on a farm, there was a lot of manual labor and it was quite meaningless. Like we put 10,000 bales of hay in our barn every year and it was really hard, hot work. And it wasn't like exercise. Like it wore you down. So I think some machines are just amazing. Like the way farmers can farm now, I think is very good for them. They can farm for a much longer time and not worry about wearing themselves out, we would say. Okay, let me have a sip of water here. Brent says GeoGuessr was super fun. It was super fun. I'm waiting to see. I'm adjusting my schedule as school starts, and I'm trying to get all the pieces in place for how every week will go. And there's a couple other things I have to work on yet. Mode says it's always a good idea to check the pressure first before using it. Oh, I know what they're talking about. Yes, I was trying to catch the drift of that conversation. Now I think I understand. Okay, here we go. Leaf blower, a tool that blows air to move leaves or debris. Now you might think a leaf blower is for just blowing leaves, but it's not. A leaf blower, it's really good for cleaning dust off of other equipment. It's really good for if you have anything where you need to blow lots of air to remove dust, debris, or leaves. A leaf blower is amazing. This is a handheld leaf blower. The leaf blower that I use actually belongs to my son, and it's a backpack leaf blower. So you put the leaf blower on like a backpack, and there's a motor back here, and then you have this large, airflow pipe with lots of airflow coming out. So a leaf blower, a tool that blows air to move leaves or debris. Very handy tool to have, not just for leaves. A socket set, a collection of tool attachments used to turn bolts or nuts. So in particular, a socket set has down here, the first thing is a ratchet. It goes click a click, click a click. Or if you flick it, it goes click a click, 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 click. So it allows you to tighten a bolt. Onto the ratchet, you will put a socket, or the next things, there are some extensions. So you have the ratchet, you click on an extension, and then a socket, and then you can tighten or loosen bolts. The problem with socket sets is that you eventually lose the sockets and then you have to buy new ones. At least that's what happens to me. I regularly lose the sockets. An air compressor, a machine that creates and supplies pressurized air for tools, cleaning, or pumping up tires. So an air compressor has a tank and it has a pump. The pump is usually electric, but it can also be gas powered. And then it puts air into that tank, lots of air. So it's highly pressurized. And then that compressed air can be used to run a tool like an air gun, like an air wrench, or for cleaning. You can use it like a leaf blower to blow air on things. Or more commonly, you could use it to pump up tires. So very handy. By the way, Mastercraft is the type of tool you can buy at Canadian Tire. So when you go to this store, this is not an advertisement for Canadian Tire, by the way. Their brand of tools, I don't know if you can see here, that socket set is made by Mastercraft. I think Sears used to sell Craftsman. I think that was their brand. But anyways, a wood chipper, a machine that chops branches and sticks into small chips. I wish I had a wood chipper. This would be very handy. Wood chips are very nice to use on a farm. It's nice because if you put wood chips down, then weeds don't grow. So if you have a wood chipper, when you have sticks that fall off the trees or branches, you put them in the wood chipper and it chops them into really small pieces, what we call chips. So a wood chipper, a machine that chops branches and sticks into small chips. I would love to have a wood chipper. A log splitter, a machine that splits logs into smaller pieces for firewood. I do not have a log splitter. We did borrow a log splitter from Jen's parents once to split some firewood, and it's very handy. So it has like a sharp point, and you put a piece of firewood in or a piece of wood in, and then it goes and it breaks that log into smaller pieces. Very, very handy if you have a wood stove or if you burn wood to heat your home. A generator, a machine that makes electricity, often used when power is out. So a generator has a gas engine. When you start the generator, it turns a generator. So it kind of has two names, and that produces electricity. A generator is very handy if the power goes out. If you don't have electricity, then you can start your generator and then you can plug things into the generator. Jen and I have a generator because the flower coolers have to run 24 hours a day during the flower season. So last year, we actually had a power outage for 12 hours. So we ran both coolers off the generator during that time so that we could keep the flowers nice and cold. A drill press, a standing machine that drills holes with precision. So I mentioned earlier, you can have a drill, like a hand drill, like it can be corded or cordless, where you drill holes. But you can also have a drill press, where the drill is mounted in such a way that it makes very precise holes. When I use a normal drill, it wiggles, and I try my best to drill a straight hole. But if I wanted a precise hole in something, I would use a drill press because, yeah, it can't move or wiggle. It just goes straight down, and you just carefully make it go down to drill your hole. A table saw. By the way, I do have a drill press and I love it. And I do have a table saw and I love it. A table saw is a saw with a circular blade mounted in a table for cutting wood. So a table saw is very handy for cutting in the same way a drill press restricts your movement and allows you to drill a straight hole. A table saw restricts the movement of the wood, so it can only go through perfectly straight, and you can cut very precise straight lines. If you were someone who was a woodworker, you would definitely have a table saw. Very handy type of saw to have. A miter saw is a little different. It's a saw that makes angled or cross cuts in wood or other material. So when you put a piece of wood in a miter saw, you can then pull it down, and then sometimes you can pull it down and even pull it forward a little bit. But the saw itself is locked in position. So if you want to cut a perfectly straight line, you can. If you want to cut a 45-degree angle, you can set the saw and then you can cut exactly at that angle. A miter saw is also a good saw to use if you need lots of precision in the cuts that you are making. I also have a miter saw. I don't use all these tools all the time, but when you live on a farm, you need these tools a few times every year, so it's good to have them around. Chop saw or cutoff saw. So this is a saw with a circular blade used to cut through metal or other materials. What makes this different than a miter saw is generally used to cut wood. A chop saw or cutoff saw is usually used to cut metal. So if you're going to make something out of steel, you would use a chop saw. A miter saw has a blade with teeth to cut wood. A chop saw usually has a blade, but we would probably call it a cutting disc that is designed to slowly cut through metal. So Jen's dad, who has a welder and likes to make things out of steel, has a nice chop saw so he can cut things to the size that he needs. Bandsaw. This is also known as the most dangerous saw in the world, I think. It's a saw with a long continuous blade that runs in a loop. So it doesn't have a circular blade. It has like a thin metal band with teeth on it that goes in a big loop. So there's two pulleys and then that goes around. This is a nice saw because you can cut things straight, but you can also kind of move things as you cut. The reason I said this is the most dangerous saw is because it's a saw where you get your fingers quite close to the blade when you're working on it. Most other saws are designed so that you are far from the blade when you use it, but the bandsaw, sometimes you're doing some precision cutting and you might be a little closer than you would like to be. A planer. So a planer is a tool that smooths and evens the surface of wood. That was hard to say. A tool that smooths and evens the surface of wood. Saying smooths slower didn't make it easier to say. You can have a hand planer with a little blade in it, but you can also have this, which is what we would call a planer. It's a machine where if you have a piece of wood and it's not quite smooth or even, you run it through a planer and it takes off a very thin layer and eventually your wood is nice and straight and smooth. It's probably the loudest machine in a wood shop. You want me to make the sound? It's like, that's the sound of a planer, but multiply that by 10. A planer is very, very loud. But anyways, a tool that smooths and evens the surface of wood. A jack. So there are a number of different kinds of jacks. A jack is a device used to lift heavy objects like a car. If you have a flat tire, you need to put a jack under your car and then you need to jack your car up. So it's also a verb. On the far end is the common jack that you will find in most cars. The little jack that goes up like this. Not the best jack. The middle jack, I think we call it a dolly jack or a car jack. That one's very nice, but you need to be on a flat surface. And then this end one with the piston that goes up, I think is just called a hydraulic jack. I have all three of these somewhere. Actually, the middle one I think is my son's, but I do have a hydraulic jack. When things need to be lifted, when they're heavy, you use a jack and you pump the jack and it goes and it jacks up the thing that you are trying to fix. Hey, I do want to scroll back because I think Know That gave 5 gift memberships. Thank you very much. A few of you, Estefania, a couple people whose names I can't read, and Yasir, all received gift memberships. So that's awesome. Thank you, Know That, for that. And it also reminds me that I should do my app giveaway, or sorry, not app. I should do my membership giveaway. I am giving away 1 membership. Let's see here. I was going to give away 1 membership every live stream. So let me find the 1 membership button. And someone randomly, I don't get to choose. Some of you were asking earlier if I could pick me for the membership. But I don't get to choose. I just randomly pay the money and you now have a free 1-month membership to Bob the Canadian. So Brandon Leung received a gift membership from me. So thank you. But anyways, thanks Know That for doing 5. That's awesome. I did do 5 a couple weeks ago, but I think for sustainability, I should just do 1 every week. But thanks Know That for that generosity. And so we have 6 new members today. If you go to my channel on YouTube, you can find more information under the posts tab about what you can do as a member. And right now I'm going to turn on members only chat. I'm going to answer questions from the forum. But if you are a member, one of the many perks is that you can ask questions directly in the chat. Brent has sent 1 gift membership as well to Kaka-Chen. Oh, very cool. Congrats, Kaka-Chen. You now have a gift membership from Brent. Thanks for that, Brent. Let me real quick talk about memberships. I will have a slide here eventually, but you get your name in green. You can participate or during live streams. You can participate during members only chat. There are 2 members only live streams every Wednesday now where we replay the Tuesday lesson and I answer questions that people have. Very low key, nice, very nice. We had almost 20 people out to each one this past week. It was very cool. You get a lesson plan on Mondays to guide you through your week. You get an extra video on Wednesdays called Wednesdays with Bob. And you will eventually get a members only short every week. That's the last piece of the puzzle I have to fit into my weekly schedule. So if you have a question and you're a member, ask in the chat. Mode says, welcome, 7 new Bobbies. Very cool. Sadak says, can I learn English? Yes, everyone can learn English for sure. Can I learn English very well? Yes. Anyone, if you put your mind to it and you find the time, will definitely be able to learn English. This is from Amran. Hi, Bob. I want to say hi to you. Long time I didn't get through your YouTube channel, though. Oh, maybe it was blocked in your country, or maybe for some other reason you were unable to connect. But I'm happy that you are here now. Very cool. I know when I see my views, sometimes certain parts of the world, my views go down depending on what's happening in that part of the world. So sometimes I think YouTube is hard to access in some countries. I know that's the case for a few countries right now. Here we go from Judith. Hi, Bob. These equipment can be found in factories most of the time, or somebody has it in his home. Thanks. Have a great day. I would say the average person owns about half of these things. Okay. So if I was to talk about the typical Canadian or typical American, they would most likely have a shop vac, which is a wet dry vac. They would most likely have some sort of vise, maybe even just a small one. They'll probably have a pressure washer, a leaf blower, a socket set. They might have a small air compressor. They might have a generator. And then if they are handy, they'll have some of the tools I just talked about. They'll definitely have a jack of some kind. But yes, I would say half of these tools are probably tools that people, the average person, would own. You wouldn't need to be a farmer or a mechanic or Brent's brother. Brent's brother probably owns most of these tools. Brent's brother does lawn mowing and snow removal and all that kind of stuff. So he probably has every tool on this list, I bet. Hafia says, where do you store all of those large tools, Bob? In my machine shed, or what we call a drive shed. So when you watch my lessons, There's a large, long building with red sliding doors. That's where we keep all of our equipment and large tools. Ismail says, hey, Bob, since you have a table saw, do you keep the riving knife on all the time or just remove it for special cuts? I'd never dare take it off. Mine has all the safety equipment on it that it's supposed to have. And I will not remove safety equipment. And I always use a push stick when I'm using my table saw as well, because I just don't want to injure myself. So I think when you say riving knife, I think you mean the knife that splits the wood. Yes. Yeah, I think we call it a splitter sometimes. But yeah, I don't take anything off of my tools if it's for safety. From Mode Eggs, let's change the subject. I think this is an appropriate time to end that conversation, Fred. And then, hello, teacher. I would like to speak English with a Canadian accent. Could you give me tips? Could you give tips for my goal? So you'll want to listen to a lot of Canadian accents. The challenge is this: when Canadians become famous in America, their Canadian accent becomes a bit subdued and they have a neutral accent. So you'll want to watch TV shows that are on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And then find YouTubers like me who are Canadian, and you will hear that accent, and hopefully you can start to mimic it. Let me just scroll back to make sure I didn't miss any thing here. Oh, I'm getting an error. What does that mean? Apparently it doesn't matter. Apparently it doesn't matter. From Know That, how was the farmer's market yesterday? Was it well attended? You mentioned you were going there with Jen. Did you stay the whole time? No, I just went for about an hour and a half. I helped out a bit. I had an empanada because there's really yummy empanadas there from one of the vendors. And it was good. It's nice because we finally have cooler weather here in Ontario, Canada. And that just helps. Like, more people come out to market when it is nice out. From Key Park, I dreamed to operate real machines when I was little. Yes, often toys are smaller versions of big machines. So you might have a small truck or a small digger or excavator or tractor. Very fun. Wanda, is it possible to integrate tools with technology? I mean, in software, is there any known advantage? Thanks. Have a nice weekend. So a lot of the tools I'm mentioning are becoming more computerized. Like a drill press might have a little laser dot on the bottom to show you where the bit is going to hit. It might have a digital readout for how far into the wood or metal you've drilled the hole. I know something like a socket set will never have technology on it, but something like a table saw, even our table saw at school, if human skin hits the blade stops and descends like so fast that you can't, like, instead of cutting yourself badly, you would just get a tiny nick because it just goes bang and the blade goes down. So definitely things are getting integrated. Freddie, Bob, could you give a short explanation about GeoGuessr? I unfortunately missed the period you played with it. I wasn't born by that time. Merci, Bob. So GeoGuessr is a game where you go on their website and it takes you to a part of the world and you have to kind of look around and figure out where you are. So geo often refers to geography, and then guessing is to try and come up with an answer. But yes, it was fun. I would usually be right, but sometimes not at all. Ismail says, I'm glad to hear that, Bob. Mode says, I think the only tools Ben is missing are protective gear. Even that he probably has, but he just refuses to wear. Know That says, could you explain the meaning of the phrase down in the dumps and give some examples of its usage? Thanks a lot. When you're down in the dumps, you are sad. You are a little bit depressed. You know, here's an example. Let me think of a sad thing. Oh, his dog was old and his dog died, and he's been down in the dumps ever since. So the solution there is to spend some time being sad because your dog died, and then you get a new dog, I think. But yeah, down in the dumps. Sometimes when the school year starts, students are down in the dumps a bit because they had a fun summer. And now it's over. Minhat has become a member. Welcome, Minhat, to the channel. Welcome to membership. If you go to the posts or community tab, you will see all of the members' posts and you will have access to them. Hafia says, listen and sing to Justin Bieber and Avril Lavigne songs to be able to get that Canadian accent - joke. Yeah, it's always funny when people sing, they lose their accent, don't they? You don't hear the accent. From Brent, modes to mode, great memory. I wish he wore more protective gear. I worry he will lose an eye or finger. You know, when you work with equipment, there is danger. And I think I did a lesson on safety a few months ago. And I talked about hearing protection and eye protection and hard hats and those kinds of things. Ismail, I really like tools. It would be awesome if you could give us a real tour of your workshop one day. I would have to clean it first. I'm sure it would be amazing to see. And I do share it with my son. He is much tidier than I am. So I'd have to ask for his permission to show his side of the workshop. All of these tools could be used in Final Destination movies. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that, but probably. And Mode says to Freddie, I didn't realize Freddie was that young. He's so wise. He is. I met Freddie once on Zoom. And if he's young, what would be the phrase here? Yeah, you would never guess it. You would never guess it. So, okay, let me just make sure I answered all the questions. I'm just going to scroll back in the chat. Think I did. If I didn't, can you just ask your question again or say, hey, Bob, you didn't get to my question. Let me do the form questions. Takagero, the best lesson ever. I wonder if sometimes you will make a lesson walking around your property and showing us real things you have, not just images. Yeah, that's my preferred way to teach. This is just more efficient. I don't own all of these things, so that would be tricky. I did do one on gardening once where I showed shovel and rake and those kinds of things. Yes, that would be more fun, wouldn't it? From Chakma, I want to learn English with IELTS. So I would say your best bet is to go to a place like Preply. There is a link in the description below. Find an English tutor who specializes in getting people ready for the IELTS test. That would be my vote. You will be able to find someone there for sure. Sandy, I found you make sounds almost the same with what you are describing. This is really interesting. Yes, I didn't. Did I make a jack sound? That's the jack sound. I should take a course on sound effects someday. Hafia says Freddie shared his picture during the picture sharing stream. Oh yeah, yep. And then Freddie says to Mode, I grew up very rapidly. It's crazy how the years fly by like a wolf, says Hafia. Okay, you guys are cracking me up today. Okay, we're going to get back to the lesson. Let's finish this off before people wander away. Let me turn off members only chat. Thanks again for being members. If you are interested in becoming a member, I highly recommend you do, not just because I like the $1.99 a month, but I think you get a lot for $1.99 a month. I honestly do. If you become a member, it's $1.99 a month. You get an extra lesson on Wednesdays. You get a short lesson once a week, 2 members only live streams, a lesson plan on Monday mornings. You get access to all levels of my app at vocab.bobthecanadian.com. And you get priority comment reply. So if you ask a question in a comment on any video, I usually sit down at least every other day and I answer all member comments. So if you are needing to ask a lot of questions of an English teacher, I think it's a great deal. Let's get back to the lesson though. Where am I? Oh, I shouldn't have stopped at jack because the next one is jack stands. So a jack stand is a sturdy support placed under something to hold it safely in the air. Believe it or not, if you jack up your car, when it's in the air, you shouldn't then take the tire off. You should first put some jack stands underneath because a jack can fail and suddenly go down when it's not supposed to. So jack stands are very handy, a very good thing to have. Or you can just use a large block of wood or a cement block or something like that. But definitely If you don't own these, I highly recommend them for safety. If you're going to jack something up, put some jack stands underneath so that it is safe to work on. Hey, back to the chat. No, that says, regarding your slide about welder and the verb to weld, Bob, can you also use to merge instead of to weld, or is it more used when speaking about companies? Yeah, two companies can merge. When you use a welder to put two pieces of metal together, we say weld. We use it as a verb. He's going to weld, he's going to weld a steel plate onto the bumper of his car or something like that. So yeah, so we would definitely use weld when we're talking about that. Yes. Oh no, you're making me get a pair of jack stands now. The image of the jackhammer fail. Yeah. If the jack fails, the car goes down. Bench grinder, a machine with rotating wheels for sharpening or shaping metal. So a grinder, there is a power tool called a grinder that you can use. But there's also something called a bench grinder where it is permanently installed on your workbench. This is obviously nice because then you can, if you needed to sharpen a knife, for instance, or sharpen your chisels, you could use a bench grinder to do that. A lathe, a machine that spins material so it can be cut, shaped, or polished. I've never really used a lathe, but if you wanted to take a piece of wood, a lathe would spin that piece of wood, and then you can use different tools to do what this person is doing. Basically, to shape the wood so it looks nice. When you see chair legs on a chair made out of wood, usually the legs are made on a lathe. If you see like a stair rail going up alongside of stairs, usually the spindles are made on a lathe. So a machine that spins material, usually wood, so it can be cut, shaped, or polished. A CNC machine, a computer-controlled machine that cuts, shapes, or drills materials like metal, wood, or plastic with high precision. This guy is making something with his CNC machine. We also sometimes call it a CNC router. You can see that on his machine as well. If you had a piece of wood and you wanted to make a sign that said, "Learn English with Bob the Canadian," so you could put it at the road. I don't know why you would do that. You would use a CNC machine. On a computer, you would create the text, and then the CNC machine would go and it would cut it out. So I have forgotten what CNC stands for. I think it's computer numerical control. CNC means what? Computer numerical control. Okay, so I was remembering. Not the greatest name, in my opinion, for a machine, but that is what a CNC machine would do. A lot of these machines create a lot of dust. Dust is when there are fine particles in the air and it's hard to breathe. You don't want to breathe them in. A dust collector is a machine that collects dust in a workshop. It's not that different than a vacuum cleaner, and it has a large bag on it or inside of it. It sucks air from just out of the air or from the equipment you're using, and it collects it in a safe place. So a dust collector, a machine that collects dust in a workshop. A workbench is, of course, a sturdy table where you work on projects. I would say most people have a workbench somewhere in their house. If they don't have a workbench, they might just have a table or desk where they work on things. But most people will have something like this somewhere. It might be a bit smaller. It's a place where if something is broken, you can take it apart. It's a place where if you're building something, like you can see this person is building a birdhouse. Also, bonus points if you can name the red thing that's on this end of the picture from earlier in the lesson. But a workbench, a sturdy table where you work on projects. A clamp. So obviously this is not a large tool, but it is technically shop equipment. It's a tool that holds objects tightly together so they don't move while working on them. So clamps are very handy. And I think almost every clamp that you can buy is here. There's a pipe clamp, there's a C-clamp, there's a hand clamp, all of them. If you glue two pieces of wood together, you need to put a clamp on them to hold it together while the glue dries. Chain hoist. I don't have one of these. I want one of these. A chain hoist is a lifting device that uses a chain and gears to raise or lower heavy objects. So a chain hoist, the one chain is a loop, and when you move that chain, the hook slowly goes up. So there are gears inside, so it makes it easy. So it's like a pulley system in some way. It's geared down, but it amplifies your strength basically. So I would love to have a chain hoist. That would be very cool. I would have to find a safe place to hang it in order to use it. An impact wrench or impact gun, a power tool used to tighten or loosen bolts or nuts with a combination of rotational force and concussive force. So it turns, but if you listen to an impact wrench, there's also a small hammer inside. So it goes drrr, drrr. So it's using, I guess, torque might be the right word, but it's also using the impact of the small hammer inside. I'm not an expert on impact wrenches, but they're really handy. I have a cordless impact wrench. It's so nice for changing tires. Instead of using like a big bar with a socket on the end, you just use your impact wrench and it makes the whole job easier. This is a little smaller than large tool, but this is handy as well. And it's called a multimeter. A multimeter is an electronic measuring tool used to check voltage, current, and resistance in electrical circuits. Very handy. If you have a tool and when you plug it in, it doesn't work, you can check, does this outlet have power? Is power getting to the tool? You can figure out why it's not working. A work light, a portable light so you can see clearly while working in dark or dim areas. A little different than a trouble light, which is a portable light with a protective cage and a hook used to shine light into hard to reach or dark places. So a work light is usually a bit bigger and it might be on a stand like this. If you needed to work on your car, you might point the lights at the spot where you are working so you can see better. A trouble light is then similar, but it's a little more portable and you can hang it. You can see this one has a hook at both ends. That would be really, really handy. So work light, a portable light so you can see clearly while working in dark or dim areas. Trouble light, a portable light with a protective cage and a hook used to shine light into hard to reach or dark places. And then pallet or skid, a flat wooden platform used for stacking and moving goods with a forklift or hand truck or whatever. This isn't really a tool or equipment, but these are handy. Skids are handy. If you have things that are heavy and you need to move them often, I recommend you put them on a pallet or what we call a skid. It just makes it much easier to move later with a forklift or even a tractor. So pallet or skid, a flat wooden platform used for stacking and moving goods with a forklift. Hey, that's the end of the lesson. I did want to scroll back because if memory serves me right, someone made a comment earlier that I was going to read. Where did that go? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm going way too far back in time. Where did that go? Mode said, good to hear the drill wiggles with you as well, Mr. Bob. I thought I was the only one here who had unsteady hands, but it seems like I'm in good company. Yeah, whenever I go to drill something, the drill usually wiggles. It's kind of annoying. Okay, what are we doing? I'm going to see if there are any last questions. There are not, so we are done. I'm not going to play the outro music yet, but sorry, excuse me. I'm having just a bit of a dry throat all of a sudden. I should have brought a larger glass of water. But anyways, thanks for watching. A few things you should know. This lesson will come out in a couple days. It will be shorter. I will remove all of the questions and it will be a pure lesson with all 34 items in a row. You should watch it again. It's just good for remembering what you have learned today. If you think the topic is not something you are that interested in, you should still learn the phrases I used while I'm talking about these things. Like when I talked about generator, I talk about the power going out. When I talked about log splitter, I talked about if you heat your home with wood. So even though each individual word might not be valuable to you, there's probably a lot of good listening in this lesson for you. So in a couple days, shorter version comes out. You should watch it again. Number 2, you should consider becoming a member. Members get lots of cool things. It's if you just click the subscribe plus button, you will have an explanation. It'll give you a list. Think about it. It's something I'm focusing more on this year, and I think members so far have been quite happy about it. What else? I think that's it. Now I just say bye to everyone. So bye to everyone. Bye to Know That and Manuel, Freddie, Wyra, Tomek, Hite, Junji, Bridget, me coughing, Mode, Freddie Wolf, Judith, Hafiez, Brent, of course, Sam Watson, and says, I'm using a VPN to watch your live. My Chinese bank card cannot pay your... Yes, I'm sorry about that. That is unfortunate. Freddie says, I saw lately a laser cutting equipment which allows to cut metal like a simple knife would cut butter. They are amazing. They can cut metal with laser. They can also cut with water. I've seen one of those machines as well. Very cool. Anyways, have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday. Know That says, by the way, I find your outro music is super chosen. Reminds me of your earlier videos. Yes, it took me a while to find it. I have a subscription to Epidemic Sound where I can legally find music to use in my videos, and I found that one. Afia says, thanks for today's lesson. No problem. Burgett says, thank you to Judith. Brent says, members have more fun. Sure. We'll leave it at that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye. Have a good weekend.